Welcome guys to another tutorial video. This guy asked me to make a double jump in platformer mode and teach you guys how that works, so you guessed it. Today we're gonna learn how to make double jumps in platformer mode. So first off, you wanna go to platformer over here to make sure your level is platformer, and of course my tutorials are always gonna be super duper beginner friendly. So let's say you had this structure up here that you kinda decided to build yourself and you wanted the player to be able to do a double jump. Now there are many different ways in which you can do this. However, I'm going to show you one of the most optimal one that you can use. So some of you guys may have thought that using an orb would be an idea. So just like that, you guys can see that we are doing a double jump. However, we want this to always work. So not only in here, but also in there or pretty much anywhere. So the very first thing you want to do is make this specific orb always follow the player. And we can simply do that by using literally one of the most complicated triggers ever. It is the advanced follow trigger. But however, don't worry, we only need to use literally one option there, and that is all we need. So you want to select your orb by going to edit and then clicking on the orb, and then click on edit group, and then you want to give that a new group ID by going to next free and then clicking on add, and that should assign a number to it, a group ID. And now if you click on the advanced follow, and this time you want to click on edit object, so now you want to enter that ID on that orb in here. So this one's going to be 1, and then in here you want to just do P1, and what this is going to do is make this target ID, which is this one, make it basically just follow player 1, because that's what we selected. And now you guys can see that the orb is literally always on top of the player, and you guys can see that this is layering. So if we do B1, it's going to be behind the player, but it doesn't really matter because, you know, we're going to hide this anyway. But I'm going to keep it visible just so you guys can see what's going on, and at the end I'm going to show you how to permanently hide it. So I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. You don't really have to, it doesn't really matter. So now you guys can see that you can do double jumps, which is beautiful. However, there's a small problem, and it's that you can not only do double jumps but pretty much infinite jumps. You can just go up as much as you want. So we want to fix this. We want you to only be able to double jump if you have landed on the ground and then jump off the ground. Then we want to basically like enable you to have this double jump ability. So to do that, we want to take a look at the orb again that we have, and then click on edit group and see that this guy has 1. And an interesting trick I use is that up there you can see it says G, and then there's a 1, which stands for the group ID 1 of that selected object. And if you don't see this information, you can just click here and then click on show object info, and now you guys will see that I don't have to click on here to see the 1. I can simply just read it off of here, which is very useful for the future. But for now, we're going to take a look that this one has a group ID of 1, and then clicking on the toggle that we have added through here, we want to click on edit object and just enter 1 over here. And what this trigger does is it basically toggles objects on and off, so basically like disable them and enabling them again. So now you guys will see that if you start, the orb is not there, and it's also hidden and it's also disabled, so it's pretty much not there anymore. So now we want to use a secret trigger. It's not secret at all. I don't know what I said that, but we want to use the event trigger to basically know when the player is able to do a double jump. So the very first thing I want to do quickly, just to make sure this doesn't get messy, I want to go over here, and over there you can see hide path. If you go to the second tab, and what this is going to do is the green path over there, we can no longer see it, which is pretty cool because we don't want to have chaos over here, right? So now we want to enable this orb right here every time you leave the ground. So if I jump, then I want to toggle it, and if I land again, I want it to be disabled. So we added the event trigger, and what we want to do is we want to add 2 new toggle triggers, and we want to select both of them by holding shift and then selecting, or if you're on mobile, you just click swipe and do this, and then edit object, and then you want to assign in here 1. And what this means is that those 2 are gonna disable this orb. However, we're gonna make one of them not disable it but enable it, so you are going to enable that one. And if you guys see, if we do it in order, it's gonna, this one's gonna disable it and that one's gonna disable, so nothing's gonna happen, and then this one's gonna enable it, and you guys can see that the orb has appeared, right? Perfect. So now instead of having these guys just being triggered by default, what we want to do is we want to select both of them, and then we want to go to edit object and then make them spawn triggered and also multi-trigger. This doesn't make that much sense as of right now, but What this basically means is that we don't have to wait for that music line, basically that one line, to hit here in order to trigger these triggers. Instead, what we want to do is we want to manually call these triggers, and that's perfect for the event trigger. So you want to select the event trigger and then go to edit object and then go up there, and the event trigger basically just triggers another trigger if you do one of these things. So you can select what you want and you can assign it, and if that thing happens, then we want to spawn something. So now what is the thing? So let's say I jump. If I jump, I want it to be enabled. So how are we going to do this? We want to select this one. The green one basically is active group, which means it's going to enable it, and we want to give it a new next tree group ID, and that one's going to be 2. And now by selecting the event and going to 2 over here and then going up there and making normal jump basically means if you just jump normally, then group 2 is going to be triggered, which is this one we have selected as 2, or as if you guys know, you can see it up there, and that one is going to enable the orb, which now is perfect. Now if we click, you guys are going to see that the orb has enabled, which is perfect. But now we want it to be disabled so that you can't do the infinite jumps. All right, and to do that, it's actually pretty simple. So if you guys just think about it, like what's happening that must lead us to disabling the yellow orb. So what am I doing that we want to basically stop the player from using that orb? And it's pretty simple. We are clicking the orb. So after a jump, that second jump, we want to basically hide the trigger again or disable the trigger again. So to do that, very, very simple. Again, we're going to copy and paste this event trigger, move it up there, and you don't really have to place them exactly like that. I just like to keep things very organized, and if you want to go even fancy, you can just, I don't know, just do these guys or something. So or later maybe just remember that this one triggers that one, although you can see it in here, 2 triggers 2, but I like to keep it a lot more organized, because later on, if your level is like massive, you wouldn't really be able to organize stuff. It's going to be really difficult, so I would highly suggest just keeping these things organized. So yeah, now we want to give the second toggle trigger a new group ID, which is going to be 3 in my case, and then we want to put that ID in here on the second event trigger, and then going up there, we don't want to have normal jump, but if you scroll to the right, you're going to see yellow orb, which is perfect, exactly what we want. And now you guys will see that if I jump, it's going to enable that orb, and if I click on that orb, it's going to disable the orb, which is perfect, exactly what we want. However, there is a small issue because we're still not done. Let's say you had like a level that has orbs in it. So what this is going to do is that even if you click that one orb, this one, it's going to disable the other one, but we don't want that. So you want to give this specific orb a material ID, and this sounds crazy, but listen, just go to group ID, to the edit group and then extra 2, and then just give it a new material. And what this is going to do is basically in the event trigger, we can specify the material ID, and as you guys can see over here, there's this section, extra ID, and if you click on there, extra ID makes the action only apply if the player interacts with a corresponding object. For example, if material ID matches, which means we want to enter the material ID of 1, so that if you click these guys, this one doesn't apply anymore because they don't have the material ID of 1. Only this guy has it, and that's exactly what we want. So now, however, a problem now is that you can pretty much do infinite jumps, as you guys can see, so that's not exactly what we want. So we want to disable this jump orb that we are using to do the double jump. So we want to disable that, but the question now gets to be, when do we want to disable that? And if you guys just take a look at it, you guys are going to see that as soon as we click the actual orb, that's when we want to basically stop the double jump. So we want to disable it as soon as you click it. So to do that, it's actually very, very simple. All you have to do is add this one, this right there. This is the, actually, you can use that one, or you can use this one as well. This one I like to use more because it isn't an orb, and it's also in here in the triggers. So you want to scale this down. By the way, clicking F3 is going to show you the invisible blocks or the disabled blocks, or on phone, just go over here, preview mode, very cool. So you want to make this the exact scale as the other one. So that one was 0.7, so we're going to do 0.7. And now what you want to do is you want to make sure that since we added a toggle up there, you want to give it a group ID of 3. So any group ID is just the next one, just give it that. And now we want to trigger that one using this one. So you you want to click like that object and then go to edit object and click in here. Just input the number that you put over there for the toggle trigger, and we want to make it what is it called? We want to this one we want, that one we want. Yeah, I think that sounds good. We don't really have to change any settings over here. So now if you place it up there, we also want to make sure that this thing also always follows the player. So to do that, it's very simple. You just give it also the group ID of 1, which you have given the orb itself, so that these both basically follow the player, which is perfect. Actually, you have to select this thing and go to edit object and click on spawn only. We have to have this option on. And now if we just, by the way, they don't have to be in the same position. You can pretty much like place them back there as well, and they will instantly like come on top of the player, as you guys can see, which is perfect. So now if we do the double jump, you guys can see that the orb has disabled, which is perfect, exactly what we want. However, you guys saw that there was an issue. If you jump like that and then you jump, it works pretty fine, but if you jump and then try to do the double jump, it doesn't really work. So it's a bit weird. So to fix that, we want to add another event trigger by just copying and pasting it. And now we want to trigger this guy, the toggle, so the one that disables everything. We want to trigger it by once the player lands. So if you go over here, select disable that one, we want to have player land. Where is it again? It's gonna be, oh, it's these guys. So just select every single one of these guys, which is basically every time the player lands. And now instead of spawning group ID 2, we want to spawn group ID 3, because this one has 3 in it, and that should be pretty good. So now every time you land, it's actually going to disable that, which is perfect, exactly what we want. And we're actually very, very close to being done. You guys can see that we have created a double jump, but there's one thing missing. You guys see that, let's say you had something like that, and that's actually one of the issues that I didn't know until a few months ago. Like, I spent a majority of time with 2.2 not knowing that this is a thing. So let's say you had a level like so, and let's say there were spikes down there, and now you go down, but it's impossible because you can't do the double jumps. By the way, you guys can place a start position to start your level wherever you want. So now you guys can see that if I fall, oops, I deleted that on accident. If you fall, it doesn't really enable that again, which is not that very cool. But what you can do is change a bunch of things. So it really depends on what you are doing. So for example, let's say I want to fall and enable it, because as of right now, only if I jump, it's gonna get enabled. So if we select this one, you guys can see that we have only selected normal jump. However, if you go back, these guys were added after 2.2 was released, and they are lifesavers. So when the falling speed is low, medium, or high, it's going to enable it, which is just perfect, exactly what we want. So now you guys can see that, okay, it's still pretty hard, but you can do the jump. The thing is still enabled, and yeah, I thought that was impossible. It's not perfect. So now you guys can see that we can just do a beautiful double jump wherever you want. So now there may be some issues that are gonna occur, like for example, you might have this and then not be able to instantly double jump. So to fix that, you can just select this event trigger that basically triggers everything, and just select a bunch of things that you want. So the orb, the pad, I mean the pad. So just select the things that you would like to enable the player to do the double jump basically. And yeah, if you somehow found something where the player shouldn't be able to double jump, just select the second event trigger and just select a bunch of things in here, and you should find pretty much all of the actions that the player does inside the event trigger. Now it's finally time to hide those guys, and I'm also going to show you guys like just a quick thing, like a bonus tutorial on how to do some cool particles on yourself once you land as well. So once you do the double jump. So first of all, let's actually make these guys hidden by selecting both of them, edit group, extra, and then hide. And what this is going to do is that we can do a double jump and we can't see anything that's behind the scenes. This is just phenomenal, exactly what we want, and yeah, looks pretty cool. Now there is a small problem, and you're gonna see that if you kind of just jump and then fall. So it's basically going to just keep enabling the orb. Why? Because we are falling, right? We said every time we fall, we want to enable our thing, which leads again to this issue of unlimited jumps. But it's important to fix that issue because we don't want that. And to do that, it's a bit complicated, but I think it should work. So instead of having everything, so every time you jump and every time you fall, enable this, we want to actually duplicate this and unlink them. So we want to have normal jump here and no these guys, and on the other one we want to have no jump, however these guys. And now the one that has the falling, so this this one has normal jump, so we're actually going to move it like that. So this one triggers that one, and this one, the one that has the falling, we don't want to trigger this always, but we want to trigger it every time you land only. If you're on the air, we don't want you to check if the fall speed is low, medium, or high. So to do that, you can just give the event trigger a group ID of 6, and it's just a new group ID, and you want to toggle it, toggle 6, which is basically just going to disable checking if you are on the ground or not. I mean, if you have fallen or not. And you can keep group ID as 2. We don't really care about that. And now the secret thing is we want to copy and paste this, and every time you jump, we want to disable this one, right? So we want to copy the values from that one and paste them in here, or just giving this one the same group ID as that one. And this way, those two are being triggered the same. However, we can't forget the spawn triggered and also multi-trigger. And now this one will get disabled every time you jump, which is perfect. However, now we want to enable it if you land. So over here, you guys remember that we made this guy basically trigger that one every time you land. So we want to do this and just copy the values from that one, paste them in here, and just do enable. And now what this is going to do is you guys can see that there's a trigger there. You guys can't see it because it's disabled as of default, but if you land, it's actually just going to start coming into existence, which is perfect because now you guys can see that we can no longer basically do the infinite jumps. However, if you land, it's actually going to still allow you to, never mind, it doesn't work because, and now all you want to do is simply move this trigger that you added at the beginning. You just move it over there, and now you guys should see that if you go like that, it should work. Now this guy only is enabled once you land, which is perfect until you see that you can still do these infinite jumps. And to fix that, we can actually do a very simple trick as well. So we just want to copy and paste these two and move them down and give them a new group ID of 7. And now using this one, we want to, give it the group ID of 7 that we have just selected. And you guys can see that these two are still there. And now what we want to do is, since this event trigger basically spawns these two, we want it so that every time you click this, it only spawns this one. So not that one, only this one. The reason for that is because we don't want you to be able to still keep jumping after you click this one like that. The second jump should not be the same as landing. So every time you land, we want to enable that one, the check for the falling. And then you guys will see that you can still do the infinite jumps, which is a easy fix. So all you have to do is simply replace these toggles with the stop trigger and using pause. So just look at this. So we want to do 1, 2, and 3. And then we want to remove that one and select everything, make them 6, and then copy the values of this one, paste them onto this one, copy the values of that one, paste them onto that one. And then we can get rid of these guys and we can just move these guys like that. And this one used to stop it, so we want to pause. That one is also a pause, and that one used to resume it. So we can select these two, make them like that. And yeah, with that we have replaced everything. And instead of actually toggling this, now we're actually just going to basically pause it, which is just perfect. Now just to double check, you want to make sure that this event trigger triggers 2, which is these two. They have to be on 2. And this one triggers 3, which is these two, which are on 3 over here. So now, yeah, it's working. Now if you land like that, it works. If you jump like that, it works. And if you go like that, it's working. Perfect. So now just a quick showcase on how to add particles to this would be pretty cool. So now there is one last thing, and it's that we need to add some cool particles. So add this object right here, which you can find under there, select it, and then edit special, and you're gonna see a crazy menu. But don't worry, we're just gonna come up with a quick and cool idea to just make some beautiful particles. So what we want to do is basically just change the speed a bit and then make it go down. This is the gravity. We're changing the Y gravity, and then we want to click on max, which is basically gonna make them all spawn at once, and then make the duration all the way at 0. And now you guys can see that there's this cool thing. By the way, I have a full tutorial on this particle system, so if you want to check that out, make sure to do so. And we want to have the angle plus minus a bit lower, and you guys can see that they all kind of have the same position. So we want to add a little bit of variance by going to here, and yeah, looks cool. Now we want to make it a lot faster, but as a result we want to make it live less. So instead of living for a whole second, we want them to live for a lot less. And we also want to increase or actually decrease the gravity. So now you do this cool nice little thing, and then going to extra, making fade out for a cool fading out effect. And yeah, decrease the particles a bit, maybe increase the size a bit, just to make it, yeah, that sounds like a, that looks like a cool, like, jumping effect. Yeah, maybe the particles are a bit too big, maybe a bit of variance is a why not. Yeah, those guys sound cool. So now, how do we want to spawn this every time you land or every time you do the double jump? So first thing, I'm going to teach you guys a bunch of very basic stuff that's very nice to know. Clicking F4 is going to show you that particle, because sometimes you have a massive particle and you can't really know where that object really is. So clicking F4 is going to help. And if you're on phone, over here, settings, and somewhere in here should be, yeah, hide particle icons. This one should also do the job, but knowing the key shortcuts is just much better. So now we want to give this particle a group ID over here, next 3, 4, and we want to add a very like incredibly powerful trigger called the spawn particle. And what this is going to do is spawn a certain particle wherever you want. So you guys can see, if you click on edit object, there is a particle group and a position group. So now this guy, we gave it the group ID of 4, you guys can see here. So we want to give it 4. And where do we want to spawn it? Well, since these guys are always on the player, we're just going to use their group ID to basically spawn those particles there. And that's pretty much perfect. Now what this is going to do is it's going to spawn them instantly as soon as you start. So as you guys can see, it spawned them right there. If you guys saw that, like, it's right there. And what we want to do is spawn them every time you click that this orb right there. Where is it? These guys. Every time you click them, we want to basically do that. And if you guys remember, we added an object over here. So this guy, by the way, if you have things that are under hide over here, you can actually click F6 to basically show them. So over here you have hide invisible on mobile, and it's going to show those objects. However, we also have not only disabled them, but also made them hidden. So you want to make sure that this one is enabled, and also the preview mode. So these guys have them like that, and then you'll be able to see everything like that. Exactly. All right, and to make the particle spawn, so we have this trigger, but we want it to happen every time you do that double jump. And to do that is actually very simple, but we need to be a bit more technical. So we said this one spawns that one, so I'm just gonna add these lines. You don't really have to, but just for me to know that that one spawns that one and this one spawns that one. And if you guys remember, we made this one also be spawned via that one. So this one spawns 3, so every time you click, it's going to disable the orb. So what we want to do is actually unlink them, and we're going to do that by copying and pasting this and giving this a completely new group ID. In my case, it's 5, and then clicking on edit object and making sure that those guys are like that. And then we want to grab our spawn particle, put it in there, select this one, do copy values, select that one, do paste values. And what this is going to do is just select everything that's in here for that one and paste them in here, which is exactly what we want. So now these two have the group ID of 5, and instead of spawning this one, we want to spawn these ones, which is basically the same, but on top of that, we're also going to spawn some particles, which is perfect. So now if you do 5 instead of 3, going to spawn those two instead of that one, and that's perfect, because every time you land, we don't want to spawn the spawn particles. That should only be for the double jump. And now I think it should work, and you guys can see that it's absolutely not working. And the reason for that is because you actually have to make sure that this one is also on spawn triggered and also multi-trigger. And you guys remember that previously we made all of these guys spawn and multi-trigger so that we can trigger them using a different trigger or something different. So by having that, it should now, yes, indeed, this looks beautiful. Every time you do that double jump, it just spawns these beautiful particles. You can actually spawn as many as you want. And by doing that, we have ourselves a very cool thing. However, you guys have seen that there's some very weird effects going on. And to fix that, you can simply just select your stuff over here, click on there and make it no effect, no particle. And yeah, I think that should do it. Also make sure to, you know, if you want to, you can just move everything backwards. You don't really need to have these guys over there. And now if you play, you should see that you can do a beautiful double jump, which just looks phenomenal. And you can even do it on there. And even if you land and then let go, we're going to be able to do that jump, which is just phenomenal and beautiful. And I want to make sure that I can go up there, because if I can't, that wouldn't be that very cool. So click and then click. Yeah, I don't think that's possible. But anyway, I hope you guys learned something new today. If you did, make sure to subscribe and also like this video and buy my product if you want to support me or if you need it. So yeah, watch the video that is on the screen right now. now, and I will see you guys over there.